right, D, round and up, hand down.
Hi, this is Guy Barker here. Welcome to Herbi.org. Today I'm going to give a demonstration of a new feature in the Herbi Writer handwriting development software, and that is to have your own helpful phrases spoken while the sample letter is being drawn. I recently got a suggestion from someone who works in a children's hospital centre in the UK, and that was that Herbi Writer should have verbal as well as visual instructions for the letter formation. So for example, Herbi Writer might say, write a D, round and up and down, to give a description of how the letter is actually formed. So I've made a first pass at adding this feature. There's definitely some improvements I need to make to it, but I think it's fairly useful as it is, and if you're interested in trying it out and giving me suggestions as to how it could be made more useful for your students, please do let me know. So to give a demonstration of how to use this, I'll first click on the Settings button here. Okay, the settings have changed a little bit in that there was a tab along here called Sounds. I've now moved that and called it Feedback Sounds, because those sounds relate to the phrases you can have spoken when a letter is evaluated. Normally when it's evaluated as correct, you might have a phrase read out, but you can also have something spoken when a letter is evaluated as incorrect. So I've added a new tab also called Instructional Sounds. Okay, so this is the new settings that I've just added as part of this feature, and by default none of these settings here are actually set, so the Herbi Writer behaves as it always did and won't actually speak anything as the sample letter is drawn out. But say I click the checkbox here, play audio, when a new letter is selected. Now click OK.
G.
Now you heard it say G then, and the idea is every time a new letter appears, then Herbi Writer will speak that letter. So it said G then, so I'll write out a G.
W.
And there you heard it say W. So I'll write the W.
X.
Okay, now you hear it say X. So what it's doing now is just speaking the name of the letter when the new letter is selected. Now it only says it once per letter, and also you'll notice it is the name of the letter that's being spoken, not the phonetic sound. So it says B, for example, rather than B. Now also the quality of the sound you hear really depends on which voice is the default voice on your computer. Some voices are much more natural than others, but even good quality voices can end up with quite unexpected sounds when they actually speak. So for example, a voice might be so quick on some letters that it's difficult to actually make out what letter it is. A B might sound like a D, for example, or an F like an S. There isn't much you can do about that. There are ways that I could actually change the rate at which letters are spoken, but that tends to be not a good solution, because while it might improve the audio for some letters, it might make it worse for other letters. So it's really a case of trying it out with the voice you have on your computer and seeing whether it sounds like something that could be useful to you. Okay, now another setting, if we go back to the settings window here, is, I'll go back to Instructional Sounds, is to say play the audio every time a letter starts to be drawn. And what happens there is, as the sample letter is repeatedly drawn out to show the student again and again how it's formed, you can have the audio played with each time the letter is drawn. But in practice I think most people probably won't use that, because it's actually quite irritating, because it can sound quite rushed and frantic and probably isn't really much help to the student, but I'll show you anyway.
B. B.
So it's not so bad in this case, but for other letters it can be quite sound quite hurried and quite off-putting. So I will turn that off. Also, the way things are at the moment, the audio can be played actually twice when you bring up or close down the settings window. I can definitely improve that, but in normal use it should only be played once. So now I'll go to the phrases part of this. So the settings window there, instructional sounds, and then I'll say speak a phrase from the list below. So I'll check that. Now what this is, you'll notice a list here of all the letters A through Z and a phrase beside each one. So for example, A, it says write A, and B, write B. So now what happens, whenever the sample letter is drawn out, rather than the name of the letter being spoken, this phrase associated with the letter will be spoken. So I'll click OK.
Write Y.
Okay, and it said write Y, so I'll do that. Well, now that's too big.
Write N.
Now, that didn't sound good, so I'll play that one again. That might be an example.
Write N.
Yeah, of where the voice on this computer is really not doing a good job with the letter N. So it might be that basically this voice isn't the best one to use, but actually as it happens it's better than quite a few others. So if we go back to this phrase list here, the person from the hospital in the UK as an example suggested for D, it could say write D round and up and down. So I'll show you what that sounds like.
Write F. Write D round and up and down.
Okay, and you heard a slight kind of inflection in that phrase, round and up and down. Now, it's possible that you can change how the phrase is spoken by trying different punctuation in the text for the phrase. Sometimes the voices might behave a little differently depending on what sort of punctuation is used. Or perhaps if single quotes are used around letters, that might change how it sounds. But it's a case of really experimenting with the voice and seeing what works out best in practice. Now, again, I'll bring up the phrase list. Now, I added the phrase write D round and up and down because that was a suggestion, or at least an example of the sort of thing that could be used. I really don't know what the best instructions would be for all the other letters, and it might be that your student would prefer a particular phrase that isn't a general phrase. So what you can do is change these phrases to be whatever you want. So I'm going to tap the letter A here, and up comes the window. It says a phrase for the sample letter being written. Type the phrase to be spoken for the letter A. So now I'm going to type something that I want to be spoken whenever the A appears. So I'll say this is the letter A. Now click OK, and you'll notice the phrase this is a letter A now appears there. Now click OK.
Write J.
And I'll go select the letter A now.
This is the letter A.
And you heard it say this is the letter A. So you can change these phrases to be whatever you want. And as it happens, these settings, this list of phrases, isn't actually saved on a per student basis. So if you're using Herbi Writer in a classroom environment, the same set of phrases will be used for all students. Also, for this very first pass of this feature, these phrases only work with the lowercase letters, set of letters, which is the default set that appear. But depending on what feedback you get relating to this feature, I would expand it to the other sets of letters as well. Okay, so that's the new audio instruction feature of the Herbi Writer handwriting development software. If you have any suggestions for how you'd like to see this improved to make it more useful for your students, please do let me know at barker@herbi.org.